The crystalline moons of Kepler 442c cast their pale light across the frozen tundra as Marcus Chen adjusted his thermal scanner for the third time in 10 minutes. The readings made no sense. Heat signatures appeared and vanished like ghosts in the swirling snow, defying every principle of xenobiology he had learned during his 15 years as a frontier scout for the Terran Exploration Corps. "Control, this is Scout 7 Alpha," he whispered into his comm unit, breath forming small clouds despite his suit's environmental systems. "I'm getting inconsistent thermal readings approximately 2 clicks north of the landing site. Requesting permission to investigate." Static crackled through his earpiece before Lieutenant Commander Saravas's voice emerged, tinged with concern. "Marcus, you're supposed to be conducting a routine perimeter sweep. What kind of inconsistencies are we talking about?" Marcus crouched behind a formation of ice-covered rocks, watching his scanner's display flicker between empty tundra and clusters of warm signatures. "Ma'am, I'm seeing what appears to be a large group of organisms moving in coordinated patterns. They appear for 30 seconds, then vanish completely. No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, nothing. That's impossible. The initial orbital scan showed this planet was uninhabited except for basic microorganisms and some primitive plant analogs. I know what the scan said, Commander, but something is definitely out here." Marcus enhanced the scanner's sensitivity, noting how the mysterious signatures seemed to circle his position in ever-tightening spirals. "Whatever these things are, they're displaying pack hunting behavior." The silence that followed stretched longer than Marcus liked. When Voss finally responded, her voice carried the weight of command decisions made under uncertainty. "Scout 7 Alpha, abort your current mission and return to base immediately. We're not equipped to handle unknown xenofauna contact protocols." "Understood, Control. Beginning return journey now." Marcus started to rise, then froze as his scanner exploded with heat signatures. Dozens of them, surrounding his position in a perfect circle roughly 50 meters in diameter. "Commander, I've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where I'm completely surrounded by whatever these things are, and they're not showing up on visual." Marcus slowly drew his plasma sidearm, knowing it would be nearly useless if these creatures proved hostile. Frontier scouts carried light weapons designed for specimen collection, not combat. Thermal shows approximately 40 to 50 entities, but I can't see anything through my visor's enhancement systems. The wind picked up, howling across the desolate landscape with an almost musical quality that made Marcus's skin crawl. There was something deliberate about the sound, something that suggested intelligence rather than mere atmospheric phenomenon. "Marcus, listen carefully. We're launching an emergency extraction shuttle, but it'll take 20 minutes to reach your position. You need to find cover and avoid any hostile contact until we can get you out of there." "Copy that, Commander. Moving to the rock formation at my 2 o'clock. Marcus began a careful retreat, keeping his weapon ready and his scanner active. The thermal signatures moved with him, maintaining their circular formation with mathematical precision. These things are definitely intelligent. They're coordinating their movements like a military unit. As he reached the shelter of the ice-covered rocks, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. Small indentations in the snow, barely visible in the pale moonlight, formed a trail leading directly to his hiding spot. The tracks were unlike anything in the xenobiology databases, showing 6-toed appendages with what appeared to be retractable claws. "Commander, I've got evidence of physical tracks. Sending visual data now." He activated his suit's recording systems, capturing images of the strange footprints. "These creatures have been tracking me for some time. The prints show they've been following my route from the landing site." Received, Scout 7 Alpha. Our xenobiology team is analyzing the imagery now. Initial assessment suggests a highly evolved predator species with advanced hunting instincts. Marcus pressed himself against the cold rock, watching his scanner as the thermal signatures began to shift their formation. Instead of maintaining their circle, they started moving in complex patterns that reminded him of pack animals preparing for a coordinated strike. "They're changing tactics, Commander. Moving from containment formation to what looks like attack positioning." The musical wind sound intensified, and Marcus realized it wasn't wind at all. The creatures were communicating using subsonic frequencies that barely registered on his equipment's audio sensors. The sophistication of their coordination suggested a level of intelligence that made first contact protocols a dangerous joke. "Marcus, we've got a bigger problem," Boss's voice carried a new urgency. Orbital scans are detecting massive thermal signatures converging on your position from multiple directions. Whatever you've encountered isn't just a local pack. It's part of a much larger population. How much larger? Conservative estimate puts the approaching groups at over 300 individuals. They're moving in coordinated waves, maintaining formation discipline that would make our Marine Corps proud. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as the implications sank in. He wasn't dealing with simple predators. These creatures displayed military-level tactical thinking, suggesting a civilization that had somehow evaded detection during the planet's initial survey. Commander, if these beings are this advanced, why didn't our orbital scans detect any signs of civilization? Unknown at this time. Focus on survival. Extraction is still 15 minutes out. The thermal signatures on Marcus's scanner suddenly stopped moving. The entire pack, numbering at least 50 individuals, held perfectly still in their attack positions. The subsonic communication ceased, leaving only the genuine whisper of wind across ice. The silence felt more threatening than any predator's roar. Marcus adjusted his weapon's power setting to maximum discharge, knowing it would give him perhaps 6 shots before the energy cell depleted. Against 50 intelligent predators, 6 shots represented false hope rather than genuine defense capability. Then, he heard something that changed everything. A soft, mewling sound drifted across the frozen landscape. High-pitched and vulnerable, it spoke of youth and innocence in a language that transcended species barriers. Somewhere in the darkness beyond his hiding place, young creatures were calling for help. Marcus enhanced his audio sensors, triangulating the source of the sounds. They came from a shallow depression roughly 30 meters to his left, well within the circle of thermal signatures that surrounded him. The adult creatures maintained their attack positions, but something in their behavior had shifted. The perfect military precision remained, but there was a new tension in their formation. Commander, I'm detecting what sound like juvenile distress calls coming from within the creature's formation. I think there might be young ones trapped or injured in the area. Marcus, do not attempt any rescue operations. You are not equipped for xenofauna interaction, and we have no idea if this might be some form of hunting strategy. But Marcus was already moving, driven by instincts that had served him well during 15 years of frontier exploration. The mewling sounds grew stronger as he approached, and his thermal scanner showed several small heat signatures huddled together in what appeared to be a natural shelter formed by fallen ice formations. As he drew closer, the adult creature's thermal signatures shifted again. Instead of maintaining attack positions, they began moving in agitated patterns that suggested extreme distress. The subsonic communications resumed, but the frequency patterns were different now, carrying emotional undertones that Marcus's limited xenolinguistics training couldn't interpret but somehow understood. Commander, I think the adults are trying to reach the juveniles. Something has them trapped, and the pack is trying to figure out how to help without endangering the young ones. That's speculation, Marcus. Return to cover immediately. But Marcus had already seen what trapped the young creatures. A massive sheet of ice, probably displaced during one of the planet's frequent seismic events, had created a natural cage around several juveniles. The adult creatures were too large to enter the narrow opening, and any attempt to break the ice barrier risked crushing the trapped offspring. Marcus approached slowly, keeping his weapon lowered but ready. The thermal signatures of the adult pack tracked his movement, but they made no aggressive moves. If anything, their behavior suggested they were giving him space to work. I can see them now, Commander. 5 juvenile organisms trapped under displaced ice formations. The adults are maintaining distance, but they're watching every move I make. Marcus, you're violating first contact protocols and potentially endangering both yourself and an unknown species. Return to your position immediately. The largest of the trapped juveniles looked directly at Marcus as he approached the ice formation. Even through his visor's enhancement systems, he could see large, intelligent eyes that held the same desperate hope he had witnessed in countless rescue situations across human space. The universal language of a parent's fear for their children needed no translation. Marcus holstered his weapon and activated his suit's industrial laser, designed for sample collection but powerful enough to cut through ice. Commander, I'm going to free these creatures. Their parents have given me a clear opportunity to help, and I'm taking it. Marcus, that's a direct violation of standing orders. Then, court-martial me when I get back to base. Marcus began cutting through the ice barrier, working carefully to avoid creating vibrations that might cause further collapse. The adult creatures' thermal signatures showed they were moving closer, but still maintaining a respectful distance. These beings are intelligent, peaceful, and desperately trying to save their children. I'm not going to stand by and watch them suffer when I can help. The industrial laser made quick work of the ice formation, and, within minutes, Marcus had cleared an opening large enough for the trapped juveniles to escape. As the first young creature emerged, the adult thermal signatures began moving in what could only be described as celebration patterns. The juveniles were beautiful in their alien way. Covered in thick, silvery fur that seemed to shimmer in the pale moonlight, they moved with the grace of creatures perfectly adapted to their frozen world. Each stood roughly half Marcus's height, with elongated limbs and large eyes that spoke of intelligence and awareness. As the last juvenile emerged from the ice trap, the adult creatures began approaching Marcus's position. Their movement was slow and deliberate, clearly intended to avoid triggering any defensive reactions. The subsonic communications resumed, but the frequency patterns now carried what Marcus interpreted as gratitude rather than aggression. "Commander, the adult creatures are approaching, but their body language suggests peaceful intentions. I think they're trying to thank me for helping their young. Marcus, extraction shuttle is still 8 minutes out. Maintain safe distance and prepare for emergency evacuation if necessary." The largest adult creature approached within 10 meters of Marcus's position before stopping. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, it possessed the same silvery fur as the juveniles but with intricate patterns that suggested age and status. Its large eyes focused on Marcus with unmistakable intelligence, and, when it spoke using subsonic frequencies, Marcus felt rather than heard the complex emotional content of the communication. "I think it's trying to tell me something important, Commander. The frequency patterns are too complex for simple animal communication. This is language." The creature continued its subsonic speech for several minutes, occasionally gesturing toward the juveniles and, then, toward Marcus. Other adults joined the communication, creating a complex harmony of frequencies that seemed to tell a story. Marcus found himself nodding along, understanding the emotional content if not the specific meaning. "Marcus, extraction shuttle is 2 minutes out. Prepare for immediate departure." But Marcus was no longer listening to his commander. The largest creature had extended one of its 6-fingered hands toward him, palm up in what appeared to be a universal gesture of greeting or gratitude. Marcus looked at the offered hand, then, at the intelligent eyes watching him, and made a decision that would change everything. He removed his glove and reached out to touch the creature's palm. The contact lasted only seconds, but, in that brief moment Marcus felt a rush of images and emotions that overwhelmed his human consciousness. He saw vast cities built into glacier formations, witnessed technological marvels that used the planet's unique crystalline formations as both building materials and energy sources. He experienced the creature's perspective of the initial human survey, watching from hidden positions as the supposedly empty planet was catalogued and claimed. Most importantly, he felt the creature's gratitude for saving the trapped juveniles, and the pack's decision to reveal themselves to this human who had proven himself worthy of trust. When the contact ended, Marcus staggered backward, his mind reeling from the intensity of the experience. The creatures began moving away, gathering their young and retreating into the frozen landscape. But, before they disappeared entirely, the largest adult turned back and spoke one final subsonic message. Marcus didn't need translation equipment to understand the meaning. It was an invitation, a promise that when humans were ready to meet as equals rather than conquerors, the people of Kepler 442c would be waiting. The extraction shuttle's engines roared overhead as Marcus stood alone on the frozen tundra, holding his bare hand and wondering how he would explain what had just happened to a command structure that viewed every new world as territory to be claimed rather than home to be respected. As the shuttle landed and rescue personnel rushed toward him, Marcus made another decision. His official report would describe the encounter as first contact with a non-hostile alien species. He would recommend immediate establishment of diplomatic protocols and suspension of colonization plans pending formal negotiations. But he would keep the deeper truth to himself until humanity proved ready to hear it. The creatures of Kepler 442c weren't just intelligent. They were wise, patient, and had been watching human expansion across the galaxy for decades. They knew about Earth's wars, about humanity's tendency to destroy what it couldn't understand, and about the choice that now faced both species. Marcus climbed aboard the extraction shuttle, his mind already working on the words that might convince his superiors to approach this first contact with the wisdom it deserved. Outside the shuttle's windows, the crystalline moons continued their dance across alien skies, while somewhere in the frozen landscape below, a pack of beings who had trusted a single human with their most precious possessions waited to see if that trust had been well placed. The shuttle lifted off into the pale night, carrying Marcus toward a conversation that would determine the future of two species and the course of human expansion into a galaxy that was far more crowded than anyone had imagined. The debriefing room aboard the TEC Meridian felt sterile and cold after the alien beauty of Kepler 442c's frozen landscape. Marcus sat across from a panel of senior officers, their faces reflecting varying degrees of skepticism and concern as he concluded his account of the encounter. The holographic display behind him showed thermal imaging data from his suit, the only concrete evidence of what had transpired on the planet's surface. Admiral Helena Vasquez, commanding officer of the Meridian and veteran of first contact situations across 3 star systems, leaned forward in her chair. Her weathered features bore the marks of decades spent mediating between human ambition and alien realities. Scout Chen, your thermal data confirms the presence of large, organized groups of unknown organisms. However, your interpretation of their behavior as intelligent communication rather than instinctive pack hunting requires substantial evidence. Marcus had anticipated this reaction. Military minds trained to view the universe through tactical lenses struggled with concepts that couldn't be measured, catalogued, and strategically assessed. Admiral, with respect, the mathematical precision of their formations and the complexity of their acoustic patterns far exceed anything we've observed in non-sentient species. These beings demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rival human military units. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the expedition's chief xenobiologist, adjusted her tablet and spoke without looking up from the data streams flowing across its surface. Mr. Chen, while your observations are intriguing, we must be careful not to anthropomorphize natural behaviors. Many Earth species display what appears to be complex coordination when viewed from limited perspectives. Without direct linguistic analysis or technological artifacts, we cannot conclude sentience. Doctor, I made physical contact with one of the beings. The exchange involved complex imagery and emotional content that suggested advanced consciousness. Marcus knew how his words sounded to trained scientists, but he also knew what he had experienced during that brief moment of connection. Lieutenant Commander Voss, who had monitored the entire encounter from orbit, entered the conversation with characteristic directness. Marcus, I've reviewed your suit's biometric data from the time of alleged contact. Your neural activity spiked to levels typically associated with severe electromagnetic interference or mild seizure activity. It's possible you experienced hallucinations caused by unknown environmental factors. The suggestion stung, but Marcus recognized the logical approach his colleagues were taking. Extraordinary claims required extraordinary evidence, and he possessed nothing more substantial than personal testimony and ambiguous sensor readings. Commander, the consistency and complexity of the images I received during contact suggest external input rather than neurological malfunction. These beings shared specific information about their civilization and technology. Admiral Vasquez consulted her own tablet, reviewing Marcus's preliminary report with the careful attention of someone whose decisions would affect interstellar policy. Mr. Chen, you mentioned observing what appeared to be cities and advanced technology during this alleged mental contact. Can you provide specific details about their location or nature? Marcus closed his eyes, calling up the flood of images that had overwhelmed him during the brief connection. The structures were integrated into natural ice formations, using the planet's crystalline geology as both foundation and power source. The architecture suggested they'd been established for centuries, possibly millennia. The cities were hidden beneath the surface, accessible through networks of tunnels that our orbital surveys wouldn't detect. Convenient, Dr. Rodriguez muttered, her tone suggesting professional skepticism rather than personal animosity. Underground civilizations that leave no surface traces and communicate through untestable psychic contact. Mr. Chen, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we need verifiable data before making policy recommendations. Colonel James Harrison, the expedition's military advisor, had remained silent throughout most of the debriefing. His intervention carried the weight of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall across human space. Admiral, regardless of the specific nature of Mr. Chen's encounter, we have confirmed the presence of large, coordinated groups of unknown organisms on a planet we're scheduled to begin terraforming operations on within 6 months. That fact alone requires significant revision of our mission parameters. The statement shifted the room's dynamic. Whatever the truth about alien intelligence, the presence of any large-scale ecosystem on Kepler 442c represented a challenge to the Meridian's primary mission. The Terran Expansion Corps had invested enormous resources in establishing humanity's first permanent colony beyond the inner systems, and discovering the planet wasn't as empty as surveys indicated created massive logistical and ethical complications. Admiral Vasquez stood and walked to the room's observation port, gazing out at the blue-white sphere that hung in space beyond the ship's hull. Colonel Harrison raises the essential point. Our terraforming equipment is already in transit from Earth. The atmospheric processors and surface preparation machinery represent a 40 billion credit investment that cannot be easily redirected to alternative targets. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with environmental systems. The Admiral's words revealed the core tension that would determine the fate of both species. Human expansion operated on economic timelines that measured decades rather than centuries, while first contact protocols required careful, patient approaches that prioritized long-term stability over immediate results. Admiral, Marcus said carefully, if these beings are intelligent, then, beginning terraforming operations without their consent would constitute an act of war against a previously unknown civilization. That's a significant if, Mr. Chen. Dr. Rodriguez, what would be required to establish definitive proof of intelligence in the organisms Mr. Chen encountered? The xenobiologist consulted her tablet again, reviewing protocols developed during humanity's expansion into previously empty star systems. Standard first contact verification requires either direct technological artifacts, demonstrable linguistic patterns that can be recorded and analyzed, or behavioral evidence that clearly exceeds natural evolutionary capabilities. Physical contact testimony, while interesting, cannot serve as primary evidence for intelligence classification. Lieutenant Commander Voss leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Marcus, during your encounter, did you observe any evidence of tool use or environmental modification that might indicate technological development? The beings themselves showed no visible technology, but the images I received during contact suggested extensive underground infrastructure. However, I understand that subjective experiences cannot serve as evidence for policy decisions. Marcus paused, considering his next words carefully. What I can provide is a recommendation for extended observation protocols that might yield the concrete evidence Dr. Rodriguez requires. Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly. Elaborate on that recommendation, Scout. These beings demonstrated complex pack coordination and apparent concern for their offspring that suggests social structures beyond simple animal behavior. If we establish a long-term observation post on the planet's surface, we could potentially document technological or linguistic evidence over time. Additionally, their apparent ability to avoid detection during orbital surveys suggests capabilities that warrant careful study regardless of intelligence questions. Admiral Vasquez returned to her seat, her expression revealing the weight of command decisions that would affect millions of lives. Mr. Chen, your proposal has merit, but it also presents significant complications. The Meridian's mission timeline doesn't allow for extended observation periods. Our terraforming fleet arrives in 147 days, and our charter requires us to have surface operations established by that time. The numbers struck Marcus like physical blows. 147 days to prove the intelligence of a species that had survived undetected for centuries, establish diplomatic contact protocols, and potentially redirect the largest colonization effort in human history. The timeline made success seem impossible, but failure meant the destruction of a civilization that had trusted him enough to reveal their existence. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her tablet, her scientific curiosity clearly wrestling with practical constraints. Admiral, if Mr. Chen's observations are accurate, we're dealing with a species that has successfully concealed an advanced civilization from our detection systems. That capability alone represents a significant strategic consideration for colonial security. Explain. If these beings possess technology capable of hiding entire cities from orbital surveys, they also possess capabilities that could threaten our surface operations. We would be establishing a colony on a planet where we cannot accurately assess potential threats or defensive capabilities. The implications settled over the room like a physical presence. Colonel Harrison, who had spent his career analyzing military threats across human space, spoke first. Doctor, are you suggesting these beings might pose an active threat to colonization efforts? I'm suggesting that establishing a major colonial operation on a planet where we cannot accurately assess the local situation represents an unacceptable security risk. Mr. Chen's encounter, regardless of its specific nature, confirms that our intelligence about this world is fundamentally flawed. Admiral Vasquez stood again, her decision-making process clearly accelerating as the complexity of the situation became apparent. Colonel, what would be the minimum observation force required to establish accurate intelligence about these organisms within our existing timeline? Ma'am, a comprehensive surface observation operation would require at least a full company of Marines with specialized xenobiology support. We're talking about a minimum force of 150 personnel with extended surface deployment capabilities. Personnel and equipment we don't have available within the mission timeline. The Admiral's frustration was evident, but Marcus recognized it as the frustration of someone trying to balance competing demands rather than someone seeking excuses to ignore inconvenient discoveries. Marcus stood, knowing he was about to make a proposal that would probably end his career but might save two civilizations from unnecessary conflict. Admiral, I volunteer to return to the surface as a long-term observer. One person with appropriate equipment could establish basic contact protocols and gather the intelligence data our mission requires. The room fell silent. Lieutenant Commander Voss was the first to speak, her voice carrying personal concern that transcended military hierarchy. Marcus, you're talking about a solo deployment on an unexplored world with potentially hostile alien contact. That's not observation, that's suicide. Commander, these beings had multiple opportunities to harm me during our encounter. Instead, they demonstrated protective behavior toward their young and what appeared to be gratitude for assistance. If they wanted humans dead, I would already be dead. Dr. Rodriguez closed her tablet and looked directly at Marcus, her scientific skepticism warring with growing curiosity about the beings he had described. Mr. Chen, even assuming these organisms are non-hostile, a solo observation mission would violate every safety protocol we've developed for frontier exploration. Doctor, our current situation already violates every protocol we've developed for inhabited world contact. We're past the point where standard procedures apply. Admiral Vasquez returned to her seat, her expression indicating that command decisions were crystallizing behind her measured exterior. Mr. Chen, your proposal has theoretical merit, but I cannot authorize a solo deployment without concrete evidence that these beings represent a legitimate first contact situation rather than an environmental hazard. Marcus felt the weight of species-level responsibility settling on his shoulders. The beings who had trusted him with their existence deserved more than dismissal based on insufficient evidence, but he also understood the practical constraints that governed military decisions. Admiral, what evidence would be sufficient to authorize extended observation protocols? Demonstrable technology, recorded linguistic patterns, or behavioral evidence that clearly exceeds natural evolutionary capabilities. The same standards Dr. Rodriguez outlined, but documented in a format that can be independently verified. And if I can provide that evidence during a brief return to the surface? The Admiral studied Marcus with the calculating gaze of someone who had learned to evaluate personnel under pressure. If you can provide independently verifiable evidence of intelligence within a 72-hour surface mission, I will authorize extended observation protocols and recommend delay of terraforming operations pending diplomatic contact procedures. 72 hours to prove the existence of a hidden civilization and prevent interstellar war. Marcus had faced difficult missions during his frontier service, but nothing approaching this level of complexity and consequence. Admiral, I accept those terms. Colonel Harrison leaned forward, his military experience clearly raising concerns about mission parameters. Admiral, a 72-hour solo mission presents significant risk factors. If Mr. Chen's assessment of these beings is incorrect, we could lose our only witness to their capabilities. Colonel, the alternative is proceeding with colonization operations while maintaining the assumption that Mr. Chen's encounter was either misinterpreted animal behavior or environmentally induced hallucination. If these beings are intelligent and we begin terraforming operations without their consent, we face the possibility of the first interstellar war in human history. The weight of that possibility settled over the debriefing room. Marcus had spent his career exploring empty worlds, cataloging resources, and preparing the way for human expansion. The idea that humanity might be unknowingly destroying other civilizations during that expansion represented a fundamental challenge to everything he thought he understood about his species' role in the galaxy. Dr. Rodriguez reopened her tablet, her scientific curiosity clearly overcoming her professional caution. Mr. Chen, if you do return to the surface, what specific evidence would you prioritize gathering? Recordings of their acoustic communication patterns, documentation of any technological artifacts or environmental modifications, and, if possible, establishment of a communication protocol that could serve as the foundation for formal diplomatic contact. And if these beings prove hostile to repeated human contact? Marcus considered the question, remembering the complex emotions he had sensed during his brief connection with the alien leader. Doctor, the beings I encountered demonstrated protective instincts toward their young that mirror human parental behavior. Species that prioritize offspring survival typically avoid unnecessary conflicts that might endanger their children. I believe they want to avoid confrontation as much as we do. Lieutenant Commander Voss consulted her command tablet, reviewing logistical requirements for the proposed mission. Marcus, a 72-hour surface deployment would require specialized equipment and emergency extraction protocols. We're talking about significant resource allocation for what remains a high-risk, low-probability mission. Commander, the terraforming fleet represents a 40 billion credit investment. If there's even a 10% chance that Mr. Chen's assessment is correct, the economic justification for this mission is clear. Admiral Vasquez stood, her decision-making process complete. Mr. Chen, you have your 72 hours. Colonel Harrison, prepare deployment protocols for a solo observation mission with emergency extraction capabilities. As the senior officers began discussing logistical details, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror at what lay ahead. He had committed himself to proving the existence of a hidden civilization within an impossible timeline, armed with equipment designed for exploration rather than diplomatic contact. But he also remembered the gratitude in alien eyes and the trust implicit in their decision to reveal themselves to a single human. Somewhere on the frozen surface below, beings who had survived in secret for centuries were waiting to see if their faith in humanity had been misplaced. The next 72 hours would determine whether two species moved toward mutual understanding or stumbled into a conflict that neither wanted but both might be unable to avoid. The modified exploration shuttle descended through Kepler 442c's thin atmosphere as the twin suns cast long shadows across the crystalline landscape. Marcus checked his equipment one final time, reviewing the extensive sensor package Dr. Rodriguez had assembled for his solo mission. Acoustic analysis equipment, electromagnetic spectrum analyzers, and high-resolution recording devices filled every available storage compartment, representing humanity's most sophisticated tools for documenting alien intelligence. Scout 7 Alpha, this is Meridian Control. You are cleared for landing at coordinates Delta 77. Weather conditions are stable, with minimal atmospheric disturbance predicted for the next 60 hours. Lieutenant Commander Voss's voice carried professional calm that couldn't quite mask her personal concern for his safety. Copy, Meridian Control. Beginning final approach now. Marcus guided the shuttle toward the same landing site where his adventure had begun 3 days earlier. The frozen landscape appeared unchanged, but his enhanced sensors immediately detected heat signatures moving beneath the surface ice. The beings were present, watching his return with the same careful attention they had shown during his first encounter. As the shuttle's landing thrusters engaged, Marcus observed organized movement patterns across his sensor displays. Instead of the scattered formations he had witnessed previously, the thermal signatures moved in precise geometric configurations that suggested formal military or ceremonial arrangements. The aliens were prepared for his return, but their intentions remained unclear. The shuttle settled onto the ice with a soft thud, its landing struts automatically adjusting to the uneven surface. Marcus completed his post-landing checklist while monitoring the external sensor feeds. The thermal signatures had withdrawn to a respectful distance, forming a loose circle approximately 200 meters from the shuttle. Their positioning suggested observation rather than threat, but Marcus understood that his interpretation of alien behavior remained largely speculation. Meridian Control, touchdown confirmed. External sensors show multiple thermal contacts maintaining observation positions. Beginning equipment deployment now. Marcus activated the shuttle's cargo bay, revealing the sophisticated monitoring station Dr. Rodriguez had designed for the mission. Copy, Scout 7 Alpha. Telemetry looks good from our perspective. Remember, you have 72 hours to gather conclusive evidence. Don't take unnecessary risks. Marcus began unloading equipment onto the frozen surface, establishing a temporary research station within sight of his shuttle. The portable structures would provide shelter and power for the extensive sensor arrays he needed to document alien intelligence conclusively. As he worked, he remained constantly aware of the thermal signatures maintaining their patient vigil around his position. The first piece of equipment to come online was the acoustic analysis array, designed to capture and analyze the subsonic communications he had observed during his previous encounter. The sophisticated software could identify linguistic patterns, emotional content, and communication hierarchies within complex vocalizations. If the aliens were truly intelligent, their communications would show mathematical relationships that exceeded natural animal behavior. Meridian control, acoustic array is operational. Beginning passive monitoring of local sound patterns. Marcus activated the recording systems, immediately capturing the subtle subsonic frequencies that seemed to permeate the planet's atmosphere. Scout 7 Alpha, we're receiving your audio feeds. Dr. Rodriguez confirms that the frequency patterns you're detecting are consistent with your previous reports. She's beginning preliminary analysis now. As Marcus continued setting up equipment, the alien thermal signatures began moving closer to his position. Their approach was gradual and deliberate, suggesting careful consideration rather than impulsive curiosity. By the time he had completed his equipment deployment, the nearest aliens had moved within 50 meters of his research station. The acoustic array detected a sudden increase in subsonic activity as the aliens drew closer. The frequency patterns were complex and layered, suggesting multiple individuals engaged in sophisticated conversation. Marcus donned his enhanced headset, allowing the analysis software to translate the subsonic communications into visual patterns he could interpret. Meridian control, I'm detecting coordinated communications between multiple individuals. The pattern analysis software indicates linguistic complexity consistent with advanced intelligence. Transmitting data for independent verification. Received, Scout 7 Alpha. Dr. Rodriguez confirms that the patterns you're recording show mathematical relationships typically associated with language rather than instinctive vocalizations. Marcus felt a surge of excitement at the confirmation. The evidence was mounting, but he needed more than communication patterns to convince Admiral Vasquez. The mission parameters required demonstrable technology or behavioral evidence that clearly exceeded natural evolution. As if responding to his thoughts, the thermal signatures began organizing themselves into increasingly complex formations around his position. Instead of simple hunting pack arrangements, the aliens formed geometric patterns that clearly served no evolutionary survival purpose. Concentric circles gave way to spiral configurations, which transformed into mathematical progressions that demonstrated abstract thinking capabilities. Control, the entities are displaying formation patterns that appear to be mathematical demonstrations. They're showing me geometric relationships and numerical sequences that serve no survival function. This is abstract reasoning. Scout 7 Alpha, maintain recording protocols and continue observation. What you're describing could represent the behavioral evidence required for intelligence confirmation. Marcus activated his suit's external speakers and began speaking aloud, hoping the aliens might respond to vocal communication. I am Marcus Chen, representing the human species. We are explorers from another world, seeking to understand and communicate with intelligent beings. The response was immediate and dramatic. The subsonic communications intensified, and the thermal signatures moved into a new formation that placed the largest individual directly between Marcus and the rest of the group. The alien leader was approaching for direct contact, just as it had during the rescue of the trapped juveniles. Control, the largest individual is approaching my position. This appears to be the same entity I encountered during my previous mission. Preparing for possible contact. Scout 7 Alpha, maintain safe distance and avoid physical contact until we have better understanding of their capabilities. But Marcus was already moving toward the approaching alien, driven by instincts that had served him well during 15 years of frontier exploration. The being stopped approximately 10 meters away, well within visual range even through the swirling snow that periodically obscured the landscape. For the first time, Marcus got a clear look at the planet's indigenous inhabitants. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in the same silvery fur he had observed on the juveniles but with intricate patterns that suggested age and status. Its six-limbed body moved with fluid grace despite its size, and large eyes that reflected the crystalline moonlight studied Marcus with unmistakable intelligence. The being raised one of its upper limbs and made a complex gesture that combined specific hand positions with controlled acoustic emissions. The pattern recognition software in Marcus's headset identified the sequence as a formal greeting protocol, complete with identification markers and peaceful intent declarations. Control, the entity is using what appears to be formal diplomatic communication. The pattern analysis indicates structured greeting protocols with embedded identification and peaceful intent signals. Copy, Scout 7 Alpha. Dr. Rodriguez wants to know if you can record the complete interaction for linguistic analysis. Marcus activated his suit's full recording protocols and attempted to respond using similar gesture combinations. His human anatomy couldn't reproduce the alien's precise movements, but he tried to mirror the general patterns while speaking aloud. "I greet you in the name of humanity. We come seeking understanding between our peoples." The alien's response was immediate and encouraging. It repeated its greeting protocol, but with subtle variations that the analysis software identified as acknowledgement of Marcus's attempt at communication. The being understood that Marcus was trying to communicate in its own manner, and it was adapting its responses accordingly. "Meridian Control, we have established basic communication protocols. The entity is demonstrating adaptive linguistic behavior and appears to understand my attempts at response. This is definitely intelligent communication. Confirmed, Scout 7 Alpha. Dr. Rodriguez states that the adaptive behavior you're documenting provides strong evidence of intelligence. Continue interaction protocols." The alien leader gestured toward the formations of thermal signatures surrounding Marcus's position, then made a series of complex vocalizations that the analysis software translated as numerical sequences. It was teaching Marcus about its people, providing mathematical references for the size and organization of the local population. Marcus pointed to his equipment and attempted to explain his purpose using simple gestures and basic mathematical concepts. He drew numerical sequences in the snow, demonstrated the recording equipment's functions, and tried to convey the concept of peaceful scientific observation. The alien watched his demonstration with obvious interest, then did something that made Marcus's breath catch. It approached one of his sensor arrays and began manipulating the external controls with precise, deliberate movements. The being understood human technology well enough to operate it correctly. "Control, the entity is operating my equipment with apparent familiarity. It understands the function and operation of human technology. This suggests they've been observing our activities for some time. Scout 7 Alpha, maintain recording protocols. What you're documenting could represent definitive proof of technological understanding." The alien activated Marcus's holographic display system and began using it to project complex three-dimensional images into the air above the research station. The images showed detailed maps of Kepler 442c's surface and subsurface, revealing the hidden cities and technological infrastructure Marcus had glimpsed during his previous psychic contact. "My God, Control, it's showing me their civilization. Underground cities, transportation networks, energy systems. They built an entire technological society beneath the ice, hidden from our orbital surveys. Scout 7 Alpha, are you recording these projections? Everything is being documented. The holographic system is capturing three-dimensional models of their architecture and infrastructure. This is definitive proof of advanced technological civilization." The alien continued its presentation, showing images of human ships in orbit and surface operations from previous survey missions. It had been watching human expansion for years, possibly decades, studying humanity's technological capabilities and expansion patterns. The being understood exactly what human colonization meant for its people. Marcus felt a chill as the implications became clear. The aliens weren't just intelligent, they were strategically aware of the threat humanity represented to their hidden civilization. They had chosen to reveal themselves because human colonization plans would inevitably discover and destroy their underground cities. The alien leader concluded its presentation and gestured toward Marcus's communication equipment. It wanted to speak directly to the humans in orbit, to establish formal contact with the species that threatened its people's survival. "Control, the entity wants to communicate directly with our ship. It understands our communication systems and wants to establish formal diplomatic contact. Scout 7 Alpha, patch the entity through to Admiral Vasquez immediately." This has escalated beyond mission parameters into formal first contact protocols. Marcus activated his suit's external communication array and gestured for the alien to approach. The being studied the equipment briefly, then began manipulating the controls with the same precision it had shown with the other human devices. When the communication link activated, the alien leader spoke directly into the transmission array using carefully modulated acoustic patterns that the ship's translation systems could process. Its first words to humanity carried the weight of species-level diplomacy. "Greetings, sky travelers. I am Keth Marin, speaker for the Crystalborn of the Deep Cities. We have watched your kind cross the void between stars, claiming empty worlds for your expanding numbers. This world is not empty. Our people have dwelt beneath its ice for 47 generations, building cities in harmony with the crystalline foundations you cannot see from your skyships. Admiral Vasquez's voice came through Marcus's speakers with the formal tone reserved for diplomatic contact. Speaker Keth Marin, I am Admiral Helena Vasquez of the Terran Exploration Corps. We were unaware of your people's presence on this world. Our surveys detected no signs of intelligent life. You see only the surface, Sky Admiral. Our ancestors learned to build in harmony with this world's true nature, using the living crystal formations as foundation and power source. Your sky sight cannot penetrate the ice shields that protect our homes. Marcus watched the exchange with growing amazement. The alien leader spoke with diplomatic sophistication that suggested extensive experience with intergroup negotiations. Its people had clearly developed complex political structures capable of managing contact with alien species. Speaker Keth Marin, humanity did not intend to threaten your people. Our expansion seeks only worlds that appear uninhabited. If we had known of your civilization, we would have approached this world differently. We know the ways of sky travelers, Admiral. You claim worlds that serve your purposes, reshaping them to match your needs. The great machines you bring change air and water and ground, making worlds suitable for your people but deadly for those who dwelt there first. The accusation hung in the air like a physical presence. Marcus realized that the aliens had observed human terraforming operations on other worlds, watching as entire ecosystems were modified to support human life. From their perspective, humanity was a species of world destroyers whose expansion inevitably meant extinction for existing life. Admiral Vasquez's response carried the careful neutrality of professional diplomacy. Speaker, humanity seeks coexistence where possible. We have protocols for sharing worlds with compatible species when such arrangements serve mutual interests. Show us these protocols, Sky Admiral. Our people wish to understand how sky travelers share worlds with those who already call them home. Marcus realized that the conversation had moved beyond his mission parameters into formal diplomatic negotiations that would determine the future relationship between two species. The 72-hour timeline had become irrelevant. What mattered now was whether humanity could prove itself capable of sharing the galaxy rather than simply conquering it. As the diplomatic exchange continued, Marcus observed increasing activity among the thermal signatures surrounding his position. The hidden alien population was emerging from concealment, revealing the true scope of their presence on Kepler 442c. Instead of the 50 individuals he had initially detected, his sensors now showed hundreds of beings gathering in complex formations across the frozen landscape. Admiral, I'm detecting massive increases in alien population visibility. They're revealing the true size of their civilization. Confirmed, Scout 7 Alpha. Orbital sensors are detecting thermal signatures across multiple continents. This is a planetary civilization with potentially millions of inhabitants. Speaker Keth Marin gestured toward the expanding displays of alien presence, then spoke with obvious pride in its people's achievements. Our cities span this world from icecap to icecap, Admiral. 5 million crystalborn call this world home. We have dwelt here since before your species learned to cross the void between stars. The revelation struck Marcus like a physical blow. Humanity had been preparing to terraform a world inhabited by 5 million intelligent beings, completely unaware that it was planning the largest genocide in history. The magnitude of potential catastrophe made his hands shake as he continued recording the historic encounter. Admiral Vasquez's voice carried new weight as the implications settled in. Speaker Keth Marin, humanity is grateful for your decision to reveal your people's presence before irreversible actions were taken. We must discuss how to proceed in a manner that serves both our species' interests. That is wisdom, Sky Admiral. Our speakers will gather to hear your words of sharing the world. But, know this, the Crystalborn have survived the ice storms and stone shakings of this world for many generations. We will not abandon our homes easily. Marcus understood the subtle warning in the aliens' words. The Crystalborn were offering humanity an opportunity for peaceful coexistence, but they were also capable of defending their civilization if diplomacy failed. The next phase of contact would determine whether two species learned to share the galaxy or stumbled into the first interstellar war in human history. As Marcus packed his equipment under the watchful gaze of hundreds of alien observers, he realized that his mission had succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. He had not only proven the existence of alien intelligence but had also facilitated the most significant diplomatic contact in human history. The future remained uncertain, but, for the first time since discovering the aliens, Marcus felt genuine hope that wisdom might prevail over the darker aspects of human expansion. The Great Assembly of the Crystalborn convened in the Cathedral of Resonance, 5 kilometers beneath Kepler 442c's frozen surface. Marcus descended through tunnels carved from living crystal, marveling at architecture that transformed the planet's geological formations into breathtaking works of art. Bioluminescent organisms provided gentle illumination that revealed intricate patterns etched into walls that had taken centuries to complete. Speaker Keth Marin guided Marcus through corridors filled with alien citizens who observed the human visitor with curiosity rather than fear. Children peered around corners with the universal boldness of youth, while elders studied Marcus with the measured consideration of beings who had witnessed decades of careful hiding from the sky travelers. Your people build upon worlds rather than within them, Keth Marin observed as they passed through a vast chamber where crystalline formations had been shaped into dwelling spaces that accommodated thousands of families. The Crystalborn learned long ago to work with stone and ice rather than against them. Marcus recorded everything, knowing that his documentation would serve as humanity's first detailed account of an alien civilization. The underground cities exceeded anything he had imagined during his brief psychic contact, demonstrating technological sophistication that had evolved along completely different principles than human development. Speaker, your people's integration with the planet's natural systems is remarkable. How long did it take to develop this level of architectural harmony? 47 generations of learning, as I told your Sky Admiral. Each generation built upon the wisdom of those who came before, discovering new ways to shape crystal and ice without breaking the bonds that hold this world together. They entered a lift system that used controlled acoustic resonance to move between levels, demonstrating technology that achieved human results through completely alien methodology. The smooth acceleration and precise control rivaled the best human engineering, but operated on principles that Marcus's training couldn't begin to comprehend. The Cathedral of Resonance serves as our center of governance and decision-making, Keth Marin explained as they ascended toward the assembly chamber. When matters affect all Crystalborn, the speakers of each deep city gather to share wisdom and choose paths forward. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders as they approached the diplomatic meeting that would determine the future relationship between two species. Admiral Vasquez had granted him unprecedented authority to speak for humanity in preliminary negotiations, trusting his unique understanding of Crystalborn culture to establish framework for formal treaties. The Cathedral of Resonance took Marcus's breath away. The vast chamber stretched beyond the limits of his helmet's illumination systems, its crystalline walls shaped into complex geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Hundreds of Crystalborn filled tiered seating arrangements that spiraled up into the darkness above, their collective presence creating a subsonic harmony that resonated through Marcus's bones. Human friend Marcus, Keth Marin announced as they entered the chamber's central area. The Great Assembly recognizes your efforts to bridge the gap between sky travelers and stone dwellers. You have earned the right to speak for your people in this sacred space. Marcus activated his translation equipment and addressed the assembled speakers with the formal respect their civilization deserved. Honored speakers of the Crystalborn, I bring greetings from Admiral Vasquez and the human expedition in orbit above your world. We come seeking understanding and peaceful coexistence between our peoples. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds of voices joined in harmonic patterns that conveyed complex emotional and intellectual content, creating a symphony of alien discourse that Marcus's equipment struggled to translate. Gradually, individual voices emerged from the collective, each representing different perspectives on the human presence. Sky Traveler Marcus spoke an elderly female whose crystalline ornaments marked her as speaker for the northern deep cities. Your people bring great ships and powerful machines that change worlds to suit your purposes. How can stone dwellers trust beings who reshape planets as easily as we shape our daily tools? The question struck at the heart of human expansion philosophy, challenging assumptions that had driven terraforming operations across dozens of worlds. Marcus had prepared for this moment, knowing that humanity's future in the galaxy depended on his ability to articulate a vision that transcended conquest. Honored speaker, humanity has expanded into space seeking new homes for our growing population. In the past, we focused on worlds that appeared uninhabited, believing we were claiming empty territory rather than displacing existing civilizations. The discovery of your people has forced us to reconsider our approach to expansion. A younger male speaker from the eastern city stood, his acoustic emissions carrying skeptical undertones. Fine words, human friend, but actions speak with greater truth than speech. Your terraforming machines approach this world even as we speak. How do we know your people will not proceed with world reshaping once you have learned our defensive capabilities? Marcus had anticipated this concern and had prepared a response that Admiral Vasquez had authorized during their final communication. Speaker, Admiral Vasquez has already transmitted orders to delay the terraforming fleet pending the outcome of our negotiations. Additionally, she has requested that Earth Command suspend all future terraforming operations until new protocols can be developed for detecting hidden civilizations. The announcement created a wave of subsonic discussion throughout the assembly. Marcus's translation equipment identified emotional patterns ranging from cautious hope to continued skepticism, but the overall tone suggested that humanity's willingness to delay profitable operations had made a significant impression. Keth Marin raised one limb for attention, and the cathedral fell silent with remarkable discipline. The gesture of delay shows respect for crystal-born concerns, but we require more substantial assurance of human intentions. What guarantees can your people provide that terraforming will not resume once diplomatic protocols are satisfied? Marcus had hoped to avoid this question, knowing that his authority to make binding commitments was limited. However, the direct nature of crystal-born culture required equally direct responses. Speaker, I cannot make binding commitments that exceed my authorization, but I can share Admiral Vasquez's proposal for joint planetary administration. The concept created an immediate stir among the assembled speakers. Joint administration represented a radical departure from human expansion practices, suggesting permanent coexistence rather than temporary accommodation during colonial development. Explain this joint administration concept, demanded the northern speaker, her acoustic patterns carrying intense curiosity. Admiral Vasquez proposes dividing Kepler 442c into zones of influence, with crystalborn maintaining sovereignty over underground territories and humans establishing surface settlements that do not interfere with your city's operations. Both species would benefit from technological exchange and cooperative resource development. A speaker from the southern city stood, his massive frame and elaborate crystalline decorations marking him as one of the assembly's senior members. Human friend, your proposal assumes that surface and underground territories can be separated without conflict. This world's crystal formations extend from deep core to surface ice. Disrupting surface structures would destroy the foundations of our cities. Marcus realized that the geological integration of crystal-born civilization created complications he hadn't anticipated. Unlike human settlements that could be relocated if necessary, the alien cities were permanent fixtures that depended on the planet's crystalline structure remaining intact. Speaker, could you elaborate on the relationship between surface ice and your underground infrastructure? Keth Marin activated a holographic projection system built into the cathedral's central platform, displaying three-dimensional models of the planet's structure. The ice formations you see on the surface are merely the visible portion of crystal matrices that extend thousands of meters into the planet's crust. Our cities are built within these formations, using them as both foundation and power source. The hologram revealed the true scope of crystal-born civilization. Instead of isolated underground settlements, their cities formed an interconnected network that spanned entire continents. Any surface terraforming operation would inevitably damage critical infrastructure, making coexistence through territorial division impossible. Speaker, this information changes the parameters of our discussion significantly. Surface terraforming would indeed threaten your civilization's infrastructure. That is correct, human friend. Your people's standard approach to world reshaping is incompatible with crystal-born survival on this planet. Marcus felt the weight of diplomatic failure pressing down on him. If territorial division was impossible and terraforming would destroy crystal-born infrastructure, humanity faced the choice between abandoning its colonial ambitions or proceeding with operations that would constitute genocide. Honored speakers, are there alternative approaches that might serve both species' needs? Could modified terraforming techniques preserve the crystal formations while establishing human settlements? The question prompted extensive discussion among the assembled speakers. Marcus's translation equipment identified complex debates about technological possibilities, resource allocation, and long-term strategic considerations. After nearly an hour of alien discourse, Keth Marin addressed the human representative. Human friend Marcus, the Assembly has considered your question carefully. Some among us believe cooperation might be possible if your people demonstrate genuine commitment to preserving this world's integrity. What form would such demonstration take? An ancient female speaker, whose crystalline ornaments marked her as the Assembly's senior member, rose slowly to address the gathering. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had guided crystal-born civilization through countless challenges. Sky Traveler, your people possess knowledge of distant stars and void-crossing technologies that could benefit both species. The Crystalborn offer mastery of crystal-based energy systems and architectural techniques that could serve human needs without destroying existing infrastructure. Marcus recognized the proposal as a fundamental shift from territorial coexistence to technological integration. Honored Elder, are you suggesting that humans establish settlements using Crystalborn architectural techniques? We propose something more ambitious, human friend. Joint communities where both species contribute their greatest knowledge to create something neither could achieve alone. The concept was revolutionary, representing a model of interspecies cooperation that transcended anything attempted in human history. Instead of humans dominating empty worlds, both species would work together to develop settlements that served mutual needs while preserving the planet's existing ecosystem. Elder Speaker, such cooperation would require unprecedented levels of trust and technological sharing between our species. Would the Crystalborn be willing to share their energy and architectural knowledge with humanity? If humans demonstrate equal willingness to share void crossing and sky building technologies with stone dwellers. Marcus realized that he was witnessing the foundation of humanity's first truly cooperative alien relationship. The Crystalborn weren't simply offering to tolerate human presence, they were proposing partnership that could benefit both civilizations for centuries to come. Elder, I believe Admiral Vasquez would be deeply interested in exploring this cooperation model. However, I must point out that implementing such radical changes to human expansion practices would require approval from Earth Command and, potentially, the Colonial Senate. We understand the complexity of your people's decision-making structures, human friend. The Assembly is prepared to send a delegation to your skyship to engage in formal negotiations with your leaders. The offer represented exactly the breakthrough Marcus had hoped to achieve. Formal diplomatic contact would establish permanent communication channels between the species and create frameworks for resolving future conflicts peacefully. Honored Assembly, I will immediately transmit your proposal to Admiral Vasquez and request formal diplomatic reception for your delegation. However, I should mention that Earth Command will likely require concrete demonstrations of the technologies and benefits you've described. Kethmarin gestured toward the cathedral's crystalline walls, which began glowing with soft, steady light that required no visible power source. Our energy systems draw power directly from the planet's crystalline matrix, providing unlimited clean energy without environmental disruption. Your people's settlements could operate for centuries without depleting local resources. Marcus documented the demonstration, knowing that unlimited clean energy represented exactly the kind of revolutionary technology that would capture Earth Command's attention. The economic implications alone justified significant diplomatic investment. Speaker, energy technology of this sophistication could transform human civilization. Are there other applications we might explore through cooperation? Our architectural techniques allow construction within natural formations without disturbing ecosystem balance. Human settlements could be established in harmony with existing planetary systems rather than replacing them entirely. The possibilities were staggering. Instead of terraforming worlds to support human life, both species could develop techniques for adapting human settlements to work within existing planetary systems. The approach could eliminate the environmental destruction that had characterized human expansion while providing access to worlds previously considered unsuitable for colonization. As the assembly session concluded with formal protocols for diplomatic exchange, Marcus realized that his mission had evolved far beyond its original parameters. He had not only prevented an accidental genocide but had also facilitated the discovery of cooperation models that could reshape humanity's approach to galactic expansion. The return journey to the surface took him through districts where crystal-born families were already discussing the implications of human contact. Children practiced acoustic patterns they had learned from his recording equipment, while adults debated the advantages and risks of sharing their world with sky travelers. Kethmarin, how do your people truly feel about the prospect of human settlement on your world? Fear and hope struggle within crystal-born hearts, human friend. Fear that sky travelers will prove incapable of true cooperation. Hope that two species might achieve together what neither could accomplish alone. Marcus understood the emotion perfectly. Humanity faced the same mixture of fear and hope as it considered cooperation with beings whose technological and philosophical approaches differed so dramatically from human traditions. As they emerged onto the planet's surface beneath the alien stars, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since his first encounter with crystal-born hunters protecting their young. The galaxy had revealed itself to be far more complex and populated than humanity had imagined, but it had also shown that peaceful coexistence was possible for species willing to embrace cooperation over conquest. The shuttle back to the Meridian would carry more than just one human returning from a diplomatic mission. It would carry the foundation of a new model for human expansion, one based on partnership rather than dominance, cooperation rather than conquest. 6 months after first contact, the joint human crystal-born settlement of New Harmony stretched across the northern continent of Kepler 442c like a testament to interspecies cooperation. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the administrative complex, watching human children play alongside young crystal-born in gardens that seamlessly blended Earth vegetation with alien crystal formations. The transformation had not come easily. Initial negotiations between Admiral Vasquez and the crystal-born assembly had required 3 months of careful diplomacy, with both species learning to communicate concepts that had no equivalent in their respective cultures. The arrival of Earth Command's negotiating team had added layers of complexity that tested everyone's commitment to peaceful coexistence. The energy distribution network is operating at 97% efficiency, Dr. Elena Rodriguez reported as she joined Marcus on the observation deck. Her role had evolved from xenobiologist to technology integration specialist, overseeing the ambitious project of merging human and crystal-born systems into functional infrastructure. Any stability issues with the new hybrid power cores? Marcus asked, reviewing the latest reports from the technical teams. The fusion of human fusion technology with crystal-born crystal matrix systems had created energy sources that exceeded anything either species could achieve independently. Minor fluctuations during peak demand periods, but Kethmarin's engineering team has identified solutions. The crystal-born understanding of harmonic resonance is helping us eliminate the vibration problems that plagued our early prototype designs. Marcus nodded, remembering the skepticism that had greeted initial proposals for technological integration. Earth Command's engineers had questioned whether alien systems could be trusted with critical infrastructure, while crystal-born technicians worried that human technology would prove too crude for their sophisticated crystal matrices. The success of the hybrid systems had silenced most skeptics and generated enormous interest from both civilizations. News of unlimited clean energy and environmentally harmonious architecture had spread throughout human space, while crystal-born cities across the planet began requesting human consultation for projects that required advanced materials or void-crossing capabilities. Dr. Rodriguez, how are the cultural integration programs progressing? Marcus watched a group of human and crystal-born adolescents working together on what appeared to be an art project that combined human sculptural techniques with crystal-born acoustic resonance principles. Better than anyone expected. The language exchange program has been particularly successful. Several human children are already communicating fluently in subsonic crystal-born dialects, while young crystal-born are mastering human acoustic patterns with remarkable facility. The linguistic achievements represented one of the most surprising aspects of interspecies cooperation. Children from both species displayed natural abilities to learn alien communication methods that challenged adult assumptions about the boundaries between different forms of intelligence. Marcus's communication device activated with an incoming message from Admiral Vasquez, now serving as Earth Command's special envoy for alien relations. Her promotion reflected humanity's growing recognition that interspecies diplomacy would become a central concern as the galaxy revealed more hidden civilizations. Marcus, I have updates from the Colonial Senate regarding our expansion protocols. The Kepler 442c cooperation model has been approved for implementation across all future terraforming operations. We're also receiving requests from 12 other worlds where orbital surveys have detected anomalies that might indicate hidden civilizations. Admiral, that's excellent news. Are you confident that Earth Command will support the resource allocation required for comprehensive pre-colonization surveys? The economic benefits from our technology sharing agreements with the Crystalborn have convinced even the most conservative senators that cooperation produces better results than conquest. The energy technologies alone will save the colonial program trillions of credits over the next century. Marcus smiled at the irony. Humanity's most successful colonial venture had succeeded precisely because it had abandoned traditional colonial approaches. By treating the Crystalborn as partners rather than obstacles, both species had achieved technological breakthroughs that exceeded anything either could have accomplished independently. Admiral, what about the resistance from military factions who preferred the old expansion model? Colonel Harrison has been instrumental in demonstrating that cooperative settlements are more defensible than traditional colonies. The integrated human crystal-born defense systems can detect threats across multiple dimensional spectra, providing early warning capabilities that purely human installations lack. The military argument had proved crucial in winning support from Earth Command's more aggressive factions. Traditional terraforming operations required massive military investments to protect vulnerable colonial infrastructure, while cooperative settlements benefited from indigenous knowledge and defensive capabilities that had evolved over centuries. Marcus's reflection was interrupted by the arrival of Kethmarin and a delegation of younger Crystalborn who had volunteered for the experimental human-alien joint exploration program. Their mission would take them to recently discovered worlds where evidence suggested the presence of additional hidden civilizations. Human friend Marcus, Kethmarin spoke with the formal courtesy that had become characteristic of interspecies diplomacy. The exploration volunteers have completed their training in human void crossing technologies. We are prepared to join your species in seeking new partnerships among the stars. Speaker, humanity is honored by your willingness to share our exploration missions. Your abilities to detect hidden civilizations and establish peaceful contact will be invaluable in preventing future conflicts. The joint exploration program represented the natural evolution of human crystal-born cooperation. Instead of humans exploring alone and potentially repeating the near catastrophe of Kepler 442c, mixed teams would combine human spacefaring technology with crystal-born diplomatic and detection capabilities. Dr. Rodriguez consulted her tablet, reviewing the latest reports from the technical integration teams. Speaker Kethmarin, our engineers have completed modifications to the exploration vessels that will accommodate crystal-born environmental and technological requirements. The hybrid communication systems should allow real-time translation during first contact situations. That is wisdom, Dr. Rodriguez. The void between stars conceals many forms of life that your people's skysight cannot detect. With Stonedweller knowledge to guide Skytraveler technology, we may discover civilizations that have hidden for countless generations. Marcus realized that they were witnessing the birth of a new model of galactic exploration that could transform humanity's relationship with the universe. Instead of a single species expanding into empty space, multiple civilizations would work together to map the galaxy's true population and establish frameworks for peaceful coexistence. Speaker, the Assembly's decision to share exploration technologies with humanity represents tremendous trust in our species' commitment to cooperation. I hope that trust proves well placed. Human friend, the Crystalborn have watched your people closely during these months of sharing the world. We have seen Skytravelers learn to build with stone instead of against it, teach their children the songs of crystal resonance, and adapt their great machines to work in harmony with existing life. Such changes give hope for the future. The observation was accurate but understated the magnitude of transformation that cooperation had produced in human culture. Traditional colonial administrators had been replaced by specialists in interspecies relations, military doctrine had evolved to emphasize defensive cooperation over offensive dominance, and educational systems had begun teaching alien communication methods alongside human languages. Marcus's communication device activated again, this time with an urgent message from the orbital monitoring station. New Harmony Control, this is Station Alpha. We're detecting the approach of an unidentified vessel at the edge of the system. Configuration is unknown, but electromagnetic emissions suggest advanced propulsion technology. The announcement created immediate activity throughout the settlement as both human and crystal-born personnel activated defense protocols. The arrival of unknown vessels had become a concern since news of successful human-alien cooperation had spread throughout both civilizations' communication networks. Station Alpha, this is Marcus Chen. Are you detecting any hostile intent indicators? Negative, New Harmony Control. The vessel is broadcasting what appears to be diplomatic identification signals. However, the transmission formats don't match any known human or crystal-born patterns. Marcus felt familiar excitement at the possibility of contact with a third intelligent species. The galaxy was proving to be far more populated than anyone had imagined, with new civilizations emerging from hiding as news of successful cooperation spread between species. Kethmarin, could this vessel represent another hidden civilization that has observed our cooperation efforts? That is possible, human friend. The Crystalborn have long suspected that other forms of life dwelt among the stars, but we lack the sky-crossing abilities to seek them out. Dr. Rodriguez activated the settlement's enhanced communication array, designed to handle multiple alien language formats simultaneously. Unknown vessel, this is New Harmony Settlement on Kepler 442c. We receive your diplomatic signals and welcome peaceful contact. Please identify your species and intentions. The response came in the form of complex mathematical sequences that gradually evolved into recognizable linguistic patterns. The translation algorithms, enhanced by both human artificial intelligence and crystal-born harmonic analysis, began parsing the alien communication into understandable content. Greetings, surface dwellers and stone singers. We are the void-touched, travelers between the spaces where stars do not shine. We have heard the songs of cooperation echoing across the electromagnetic spectrum and come seeking to understand this new harmony between different forms of life. Marcus exchanged glances with Keth Marin, recognizing the implications of the message. A third species had observed their cooperation and traveled across interstellar distances to investigate. The success of human crystal-born partnership was attracting attention from civilizations they hadn't known existed. Void-touched representatives, we welcome your interest in our cooperative settlement. New Harmony represents a joint effort between humanity and the crystal-born to develop peaceful coexistence between different intelligent species. We observe this harmony with great interest, surface dwellers. The void-touched have wandered between stars for many generations, seeking others who share our belief that different forms of consciousness can strengthen each other rather than compete for dominance. The philosophical implications of the message struck Marcus with profound force. Instead of discovering isolated civilizations struggling for survival in an empty galaxy, humanity was encountering evidence of a broader community of intelligent species that had been seeking exactly the kind of cooperation they had achieved with the crystal-born. Void-touched friends, would your representatives be willing to visit our settlement for formal diplomatic contact? We have established protocols for interspecies communication and cultural exchange. We would be honored to share knowledge with surface dwellers and stone singers who have achieved harmony between different ways of thinking about existence. Prepare for the arrival of our diplomatic pod. As the alien vessel descended toward New Harmony's landing facilities, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his understanding of the galaxy had changed since that first encounter with crystal-born hunters protecting their young. What had begun as a routine survey mission had evolved into humanity's first steps toward joining a galactic community of cooperative civilizations. The landing of the void-touched diplomatic pod marked another historic moment as three intelligent species prepared to meet for the first time in known galactic history. The sleek, crystalline vessel that touched down on the landing platform showed design principles that differed dramatically from both human and crystal-born technology, suggesting evolutionary paths that had produced entirely different approaches to space travel and environmental adaptation. The delegation that emerged from the pod consisted of beings that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human senses couldn't perceive. Their translucent forms shifted and flowed like living energy, communicating through electromagnetic patterns that resonated through both human technology and crystal-born crystal matrices. Surface dwellers and stone singers, the lead void-touched representative spoke through harmonics that seemed to emanate from the air itself. We bring greetings from the Deep Community, an alliance of 17 intelligent species that have sought cooperation and mutual understanding across the void between stars. Marcus felt his worldview expanding yet again as he realized that humanity and the crystal-born were not pioneers of interspecies cooperation but rather newcomers to a galactic community that had been developing collaborative relationships for potentially millennia. Honored representative, humanity and the crystal-born would be greatly interested in learning about this deep community and exploring possibilities for mutual cooperation. That is the purpose of our visit, surface dweller Marcus. The deep community has observed the harmony you have achieved and wishes to extend an invitation for both your species to join our greater alliance of cooperative civilizations. As diplomatic protocols began for the most significant first contact in galactic history, Marcus stood between representatives of three species and contemplated the future that was unfolding. Humanity's expansion into space had begun with the assumption that they would claim empty worlds and build solitary colonies among the stars. Instead, they had discovered that the galaxy was filled with intelligent life that had been waiting patiently for humanity to mature enough to join the ancient community of species that had chosen cooperation over conquest, understanding over dominance, and wisdom over mere technological power. The pact that had once encircled a single human protecting alien cubs had evolved into a galactic alliance that welcomed new members who demonstrated the courage to stand boldly for principles that transcended the narrow interests of any single species. Marcus smiled as he watched human children and young crystal-born gather around the translucent void-touched representatives, already beginning the process of learning yet another form of communication. The future belonged to those who could adapt.